Rocky Top Insider presents the RTI Lowdown with Bob Baskerville and Chris Lowe.
Welcome. Time for another edition of the RTI Lowdown. We're recording on an Easter Sunday. Hope you had a great holiday. I'm Bob Baskerville, joined as always by On3 Sports Chris Lowe. CeeLo, hope you had a happy Easter, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Same to you, Bob. Same to all of the fans out there who watch us each week. Hope it's you got a chance to spend some time with your family and your loved ones. And it was just a great church service today. And it's a little rainy this morning, but it ended up being a pretty nice day.
Yeah, no, it turned out to be okay. By the way, at brunch, forgot to mention this to you before we started recording, but we'll always give this guy a shout out. Saw your guy, Tony White, out at brunch today, and he remembered me. So there you go. That was good. But then once I said, hey, I'm, Chris Lowe and then he was like, oh, yeah,
Did he pick your tab up? Did you pick up your tab?
Oh, no.
I'll get on to him about that.
Yeah, he was, this won't surprise you. My wife even pointed out he was dapper as all get outs. Had a great fit today. He was looking good. Looking good.
Best.
Yeah. All right. It's like I said, holiday weekend. So we have probably a little more of a condensed version of the lowdown for you today. And that said, there is still a lot happening with UT Athletics. Vol basketball's season is over on the court, but far from over in terms of rebuilding the roster for next season, as we all brace for the impact that comes with the opening of the transfer portal, and that is mere days away. We'll talk about what we know already with the comings and goings on the Vols roster and mention a few names to keep an eye on in the coming days. Meanwhile, the Lady Vols basketball situation is kind of the polar opposite. It becomes more and more dire as more defections, decommits, and firings have left the Lady Vols at what is truly a back-to-square-one situation. What's next for Kim Caldwell? We don't know exactly, but we'll share some thoughts. We'll also talk Vol football and baseball, too. There's a lot going on, like I said. But before all of that, let's give a shout-out to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by the Tate Insurance Group. If you are in the market for a great locally based insurance professional to help you with your home, your car, or business coverage, you do not need to look any further. It's the Tate Insurance Group. And as always, we appreciate their partnership with the Lowdown. Topic A, Tennessee basketball got after it almost immediately after that season-ending loss to Michigan in the NCAA tournament last weekend. And they've already started their rebuild for next season. Speaking of that, Chris, quick moment. The national championship game will be on Monday night, Michigan against UConn. And after what I saw Michigan do in the Final Four to Arizona, this might sound a little wimpy, but I don't know. I don't feel quite as bad about what happened to Tennessee in that game after what I saw Michigan do to Arizona. They are an absolute monster right now.
Playing at such a high level with a lot of guys that can score. They got a lot of length on that team. Everybody's seemingly 6'7" with long arms and just the big guy inside. It's such a presence. No, they're the best team right now. But Danny Hurley's the best coach, and we'll see how that. Again, I'm not saying he's head and shoulders above Dusty May. I don't mean it that way. But I think if you said over the last 5-6 years in college basketball, who's been the best coach, it's clearly Hurley. I don't think there's any question about that. The way he's been able to bring in guys and plug in different guys, the way they play and how tough they are and make winning plays, the way he adjusts their game plan. So we'll see. If you said, Chris, who's got the best team, it's Michigan. Who's the best coach team? Who's the team who's the coach that you'd pick right now to win a game? It'd be Danny Hurley. So it should be a pretty good match, pretty fascinating matchup, really.
Yeah, if UConn happens to win that game, that's 3 titles in 4 years. I mean, that's dynasty talk right there. So should be an interesting one to watch. You're right. It's going to be kind of forces collide, roster versus coach versus a game plan, all of that. Looking forward to seeing it. But back to Tennessee. Like we said, they are hard at it. I mean, literally, and I think we talked about this last week during the recording, but at that point it was very early in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But 24 hours after Tennessee had been, removed from the NCAA tournament by Michigan, they already had a visit from a priority player in Knoxville, and that was Tyler Lundblade from Belmont, the 2025-2026 Player of the Year in the Missouri Valley Conference. He extended his stay an extra day. He was there. He was going to be there Monday and Tuesday. He ends up being there through Wednesday. And then lo and behold, on Thursday, because he's a grad student, he's able to do all of this, do the visit, because the portal's not officially open until the day after the national championship game. And he's, in those instances, you can't sign or commit somewhere, but he did. He was able to. Being a grad student, he commits to Tennessee. And so right off the bat, great start to the offseason for the Vols. Tyler Lundblade, a guy who shoots 41% from three-point range, 94% from the free throw line. CeeLo, he's one of only 3 returning players next season in Division I basketball that hit 100-plus three-point field goals while shooting 40+% from field goal range beyond the arc.
If you get a chance to watch him on tape, I saw him play, I think, once or twice this year, but I've seen a lot of tape of him. He really shoots the ball on the move, coming off screens. He's not your prototypical spot-up type shooter, Bob. And in today's game, you've got to be able to shoot the basketball on the move. Again, coming off picks, catch and shoot. He does that very well. Almost has, in some instances, has that fadeaway to his shot. Now, I think, he's in the SEC, probably going to be a little bit harder at times to get some of the open shots that he got at that level, but he can really shoot it. And is anybody surprised that that's their first target? Rick said right after the loss to Michigan, we got to get guys who can score.
Yeah.
We got to shoot the ball better. Well, they go get one of the best shooters from the three-point arc in all of college basketball last year, right in their own state, and there was a guy who also started his career at Belmont who played some pretty good basketball for Tennessee this last year, Jacoby Gillespie. So here's another one, Lundblade, who absolutely fits what Tennessee's looking for in a shooter, but he's just one piece, and I don't know that he can be your 1A option. I think he's going to be best if they surround him, and certainly they're going to do this and try to do it with a point guard, a dynamic point guard, and somebody else who can score on the perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they can do that, guys around him that can score, boy, then he really becomes a weapon.
Yeah, I emphasized that on the radio this week after we heard we got Tyler Lundblade. Big get, like we've just been saying. I love watching his video. Like you said, it's a true catch and shoot guy. He's not going to be somebody who's taking a lot of guys off the dribble. He's just a guy. I just think about the possibilities and the prospects of how it just spaces the floor for this team, which we didn't have a lot of last year. So I think that's good. But to your point, I've been emphasizing that he should be like priority number 3 in this offseason. Mm-hmm. And that's not being dismissive of Tyler Lundblade. He's like a great weapon for this team. But to your point, we need a point guard. We're losing an elite rim protector in Felix Okpara. You could also argue we could use a better scorer along the wing that's not a guard. Somebody can go in and crash the boards as well. So there's a lot on the wish list for this team. I think that goes without saying. But again, good start though.
It was, and I think he'd been a target. I know you're right. He's a grad student, so the rule's a little bit different. They can go in and get him earlier before the portal officially opens. But I think he was on a lot of schools' lists. There were a lot of major schools. I know Virginia was one of them. Illinois was another one. So, listen, you got to have guys that can shoot the basketball. You got to have a guy on any given night. And he's not going to make 6 or 7 every night, but certainly someone who's capable of being that kind of scorer for the three-point line with the way the game's played right now. But for him to truly be effective, they got to surround himself with some guys who can get their own shots, some guys who can put it on the floor, who can beat people to the basket, drive and kick, drive and finish. That's what I think is going to be critical going forward is whether it's certainly a point guard. I think that is the priority. And then a wing because I don't see any way Amit's back. I know there's been some talk that he's dropped. He's still. I don't see a scenario where he's back. It'd be awesome if he was. I think he does need to continue to get stronger and bulk up and maybe have another year where he's playing against elite competition in the SEC. But the way it is right now with someone of his stature and his caliber and his talent, I don't see him dropping so far in the draft that an executive in the NBA is not going to tell Rick, hey, he's probably going to slip all the way down at the end of the first round. Don't see that happening. And you know as well as I know that Rick Barnes is going to tell that kid to do what's best for him. Same with that family.
Absolutely.
And Rick's got enough contacts in the NBA that he trusts, and they're going to be square with him. And that family and Rick have too good a relationship that he's not going to tell him, hey, listen, this is exactly the input I've gotten, and this is why you need to go.
We had, to expand on that a little bit, we had assistant coach Greg Polinsky on the show on the radio just a few days ago. And I hit him up with that question, just saying, hey, I'm not asking you, should Nate go? That's not the point. But Greg's got a deep background in NBA player development. He's got a lot of contacts. And it's like, is there a benefit, because we hear about the benefits of, some theory of him staying another year in school versus if you go now, you get that much closer, that much quicker to that second contract in the NBA. If you can be in the right position in terms of a draft position. Greg was interesting. He said, if I were his parent, I would tell him to go unless he starts netting out somewhere in the 18 to 25 range in the draft. Then I think there's a different kind of decision that needs to be made. But he was like, I don't think that's going to happen because the one thing that's intangible, and we know it about Nate, and these NBA execs will know it too, at least one of them will, is the fact that kid played at probably about 75% capacity in the tournament. And he did that for his team. Versus some of the other kids like Mikel Brown at Louisville and all season long with Darren Peterson. Mikel Brown at Louisville sits out the entire NCAA tournament because he's resting his back for the next step. Nate didn't do that, and NBA franchises look at that aspect of it too. Like, man, that's a kid that's going to give his all, So it's going to be an interesting one to watch. I agree with you.
We didn't see Nate at his best,
right,
in the postseason. I mean, again, I spent some time with his family in Philly. I mean, and he would tell you that everybody on that staff, he played, he gutted it out and played as well as he could play. But here's the thing. He's got a lot of good tape. You go back to the last, I don't know what, Bob, last 10 games of the SEC schedule. Right. He was outstanding. He got better and better. Yep. They ran the offense through him. He was able to consistently score with that mid-range jumper over people. He looked like what you want an NBA stretch forward to look like, and he'll get bigger. He's got to get bigger. But no, I think that tape he put up, I don't know, late January all the way up through the first part of March, that's what's going to get him drafted in the top 14 or 15 picks, and not the fact that he did not play his best because he was not healthy.
Yeah,
wasn't close to being healthy in the postseason.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, there's a couple names I'd say that are names of note to monitor once the portal opens. Now, there's a lot of activity going on within that Tennessee basketball office that we're not privy to. We'll learn about it with you all when the time comes. But there's a couple of guys who have officially entered the portal and, or at least announced their intentions to enter the portal. And they both kind of fit the mold of what we were just talking about with Nate Ament. And one of them is a kid by the name of Thomas Dowd at Troy, who was a first-team All-Sun Belt selection, 6'8", averaged 14 and 10 for Troy. Also shot 49% from the field, 38% from three. He's one of only 14 players, CeeLo, to average a double-double in the whole country this year. So, I mean, this guy, and I watched some of his highlights, he's in some very rare air, too. In terms of a stat that I want to pull up and share with you about Thomas Dowd. There are only 4 players in college basketball, D1 college basketball this past year, who had 40-plus block shots, 10-plus made dunks, and 60-plus made three-pointers. One is Yaxel Lendeborg, who we're watching front and center in the NCAA tournament, an absolute stud. Cam Carr, who we're familiar with from Baylor, he's another one. A guy by the name of Gavin Griffith, who played at Temple. And the fourth is Thomas Dowd from Troy. So this guy is, and we're going to talk about Cade Phillips here in a moment, but it's like, this is a guy, watching his video, he's got the same kind of energy, the same kind of hops as a Cade Phillips, but then with a much more refined shot. And I think that that's going to be a telling tale when we're looking for that kind of position.
Yeah, Dowd has been and is a priority for Tennessee. Now, Tennessee's hardly the only school that's courting him.
Right, right.
He's got a lot of big name schools that would love to have him, but he is right there and has been right there at the top of their list because he fits and checks all the boxes that Rick Barnes wants a player at that position to check. He can rebound, he can shoot it. I think he's much more skilled as a 6'8" player than probably anybody they've had at that position for a while. Now he is not the same player I think that Nate is. When I say the same player, a little bit different style of player. He's a better rebound, a little bit more physical, but certainly can get his shot. And is a guy that on second shots, is able to get some points off rebounds. I won't say he's Grant Williams. I don't want to make that comparison, but I do think he is a skilled scorer. And at that size, at 6'8", at that position, Tennessee needs to have somebody else, as we talked about a minute ago, who can get some points from that 3/4 position.
Yeah. And then the other one who is similarly sized, another name that everybody's hearing, and he is in the portal now, is Juke Harris from Wake Forest. And I think Tennessee might have even been a target for Tennessee a couple of years ago when he was coming out of high school. But he's 6'7", averaged 21 points, 6.5 boards, 2 assists per game at Wake. And he's, like we said, CeeLo, both these guys, first of all, Tennessee's not going to get both of them, but they'd sure like to get one of them, and they're not going to be alone. There's going to be other schools going hot and heavy at these guys.
Yeah, I tell you, we're going to have to fight off for Juke as NC State. Rick's old partner, Justin Gainey. They'll go hard after him. The kid's from Salisbury, North Carolina. Yeah, I know that area well. That's very much ACC country. The Triangle. When you start getting into NC State, North Carolina, Wake, Duke, it's hard to get kids away, from that area. And I have no doubt that Justin Gainey will recruit him very, very hard.
Yeah.
So that would be a coup for Tennessee to get him because he is a really diverse player, a guy who's played against really good competition. But yeah, someone like one of those two. I agree with you. Getting both of them doesn't seem realistic. But one of those types of players they're going to have. And then I think the point guard is the next one. You got to, and they're going to pay a lot of money. I think Tennessee's prepared to pay a lot of money. In fact, I think so much so that some of the existing players on this roster may have to take a little less money. Certainly not going to get more money. And certainly, you look at today's game and the way things shake out, Bob, a lot of guys as they move into their junior year, sophomore year, or certainly senior year, expect to get more money and want to get more money. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen on this roster because Tennessee's got to go get some players at key positions. And to do that, guys are going to help get you back to make a deep run in the tournament. You're going to have to pay a lot of cash.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into the guys that remain because they're going to be, at least on paper, and this isn't even including Nate Ament. We're presuming that he is moving on to the NBA draft. There's still 9 guys returning on this team. We broke them down last week. I firmly believe that we'd be fortunate if we keep 6 of those. I really believe that. I think it's going to be like that because of the money. Like you said, I think some players will be up for taking the cut and pay in exchange to be on a team that could get to a Final Four or win it all. Some may not, and we've seen that actually happen with one player already that's near and dear to this program, and we certainly wish him the best. But Cade Phillips announced his decision late Friday to enter the portal. I think Cade's a good example. I mean, we hear a little bit of scuttle, but first and foremost, he was hurt most of last season, and he might be looking at the reality of things. And I'm sure talking with Coach Barnes and the staff about what they feel the needs are for this team, maybe what the money would be like for him in terms of NIL, et cetera. Bottom line, Cade Phillips, who was a great locker room guy, really, really good young man, too. I mean, I've heard nothing but great things about Cade from the folks at RTI and others, but he's going to be moving on, and it'll be interesting to see where he lands next.
Well, and he'll be an asset wherever he goes because he's
Sure.
that kind of guy. He's going to play as hard as he can play. He's going to play what role he's asked to play. He's just one of those guys. He's going to get by a lot of times just because he plays harder than other guys. He's not a great shooter. Never was. He's not a guy that's a great free throw shooter. He's not the most skilled player. Now he can finish, and you start getting the lob to him up around the rim. That's where he was at his best.
Oh yeah,
and a really good offensive rebounder. I mean, he was like a lot of the guys that Tennessee had this year. He'd go get the ball, and he just had those instincts. But I think throughout the course of his career, he averaged about 3 points a game. They're going to need somebody. If someone's going to play 20-plus minutes, 25 minutes, they're going to need that person to be capable of scoring some points. And I think that's why when you look at that position, Cade moving on, part of it might be money, part of it might be role. He feels like he can go somewhere else, maybe get a little bit more money and get a role that better suits him. And good for him. I don't think anybody on that team, anybody on that staff has any ill will
right.
Cade Phillips. It's just where we are right now in basketball.
Yeah.
And guys come and they go, and Bishop Boswell will be another guy. Would he take not a lesser role, but would he play, say, coming off the bench, whereas he ended up being the starter for most of this year? Again, depending on who they get in the backcourt. I don't know. What about Henderson? Another guy who was hurt for much of this year. Where does he fit in? I think Amari Evans is someone that Tennessee's going to have to hold on to pretty tight because I think other schools are going to come after him.
Yeah.
But I do think he factors pretty prominently in what they want to do going forward, especially if he improves and his progress level is what they think it's going to be, and he can shoot the ball a little bit better, a little bit more consistent from the outside. But boy, he is a Rick Barnes type of player, tough, physical, will get to the basket, plays bigger than his size. But I do think, Bob, there are going to be some schools that will come after him.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think this Cade Phillips move might, I don't know, maybe it's just my, I wouldn't even call it wishful thinking, but my thinking is that maybe this creates a little more visibility on what they may want to do with Jalen Carey. I maybe am a little more bullish that he would stay. He might be one of these, like you said, that's going to have to take a cut and pay, though, more than likely. Here's a question I have for you is, do you think, could we see any of these guys, whether it's Cade, whether it's Troy Henderson, whether it's Bishop, maybe ending up over in Raleigh with Coach Gainey?
Well, yeah, I mean, Justin knows exactly what those guys can and can't do.
Exactly.
He's coached them now for 2 years or more. So I think there's and he recruited a lot of them. Was the point guy, the point person in some cases. So yeah, I think you may see that happen. Carey's the one that intrigues me the most because he played at a level in the NCAA tournament that I think Rick felt like he would play at most of the year. Right. Now, he's still got to get in better shape. He needs to shed, 15 pounds or more, and be, a little bit more explosive. But he was a guy that was pretty consistently a 10 and 8 guy, a 10 point, 11 point, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rebound guy. And that's what I think Rick felt like he was getting when he got him out of Vanderbilt. And a guy that I think he's capable of shooting the 12 to 15 footer. We didn't see him do much of that this year.
Yeah.
But I do think that will really open up things for him. He'll start shooting and making that shot. But he did not play scared in the tournament. He did not play hesitant in the tournament. He was more, I thought, way more assertive, was in control, played under control, and played with the kind of physicality that they expected from him. So that's one, again, what roles he wants to play. Would he take a pay cut? Is that something that Tennessee would offer him? And is he going to commit to getting in the kind of shape that they're going to want him to get in? to come back and play next year. But I do think if he does, if he checks all those boxes and says yes, I think he can be an asset to Tennessee next year.
I agree. I agree with all that. I think I feel like now with Cade moving on, it is kind of critical that we try to do our best to keep certainly JP Estrella, also Dwayne Brown, but also Jalen Carey, I think, too. So it's going to be interesting to watch it all unfold. By the time we talk again the next time, there will probably be more activity to talk about, and certainly we will keep you apprised on that. So we see one program in the men's basketball team that is all in on getting to the next level, leaving no stone unturned in elevating the roster to uncharted territory next season. And then there's the Lady Vols situation. Just a quick recap of the week, very quick, kind of not unexpected either. We lost more players to the transfer portal this time. It was the Paldo twins, Mia and Maya. And then Talasia Cooper enters the transfer portal. Now that those three join Denia Prawl, Alyssa Latham, Lauren Hurst, and Kanaya Boyd, who had already entered the portal. So that's a total of 7 players. But then, and this to me was the most damaging, was Friday night or yesterday morning, the decommitment of 5-star recruit Olivia Edwards right off the heels of just a blowout performance in the McDonald's All-American game and the dunk contest. So the hype around her is enormous. And she had said earlier last week that she was still all in on Tennessee. And then lo and behold, on Friday evening, she had removed all of the Tennessee affiliation off of her social media accounts, whether it was Instagram, X, you name it. Pretty much put some writing on the wall. Yesterday, Saturday, she announced that she is asking to be released from her commitment. And then you have assistant coach Roman Tubner, who is fired. All that's left at the end of this is you have Jada Civil, the only returning player that's currently still on the roster. And then they have a 4-star recruit who hasn't decommitted, a young lady by the name of Gabby Minus. Chris, I don't know, man. I go back and forth on this, and there's all sorts of narratives floating around that, maybe it was a revolt by the assistant coaches that created all of this, and they were undermining Kim. And then there's other thoughts of like that, even if that is the case, this is all under Kim's watch, so she has to be accountable for this. I think this Olivia Edwards decommit, though, that is a major, major blow. And I just don't know where this program goes from here. And even if Kim Caldwell stays for a 3rd season, how do you recover from something like this? I mean, thankfully you're in the portal era, so you can rebuild. We've watched certainly men's programs do this where they rebuild a roster from scratch in a matter of a week or two. But man, there is a long road ahead now for a once proud program.
It should be noted that several of the former players have come out and said that from their perspective, there was no mutiny or revolt among the assistants, and sort of had taken up, for a couple of those coaches. What did or didn't happen, I guess it depends on what side of the fence you're on. But I do want to point that out. And when things go as badly as they did this year for any team, like the Lady Vols, there's always all sorts of things, conspiracy theories, reasons why that run the gamut. And I think that's what we've seen happen with Kim and her 2nd year at Tennessee. It almost seems like, I know there's no such thing as expansion franchises in college basketball, but that's really sort of what they face right now.
Yeah.
They're going to go out and completely rebuild this thing. They're going to need 10 players, coaches, and let alone try to fit all those players together and what she wants to do. Because remember, she runs a very unique system. Right. And she said, one of the things she said is, I got away from doing what I do, and it sort of fell apart at the end of the year. Well, now she goes out and she brings people into this system. She better make sure those players can fit, that they're quick learners, that they understand what they're trying to do. That's not easy to do. Now, in her first year, I thought they played, for the most part, pretty well.
Agreed.
But it fell apart last year, and I don't think there's any secret why. She's the head coach, so it all sort of falls at her feet. But she lost her team. She lost the locker room. I don't know if that locker room ever was truly bonded the way it needed to be, but they just were not going to play for her, and they were not going to play as a team. And when things started to go badly, everyone just sort of melted. And I thought, when I heard, Bob, and I think we said it in our show. When I heard her utter the unutterable that I have a basketball team that will quit on you. That was after what, the South Carolina loss? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's over at that point. You can't say that publicly. You just cannot say it. Now, inside the confines of the locker room, maybe, but you just can't sit there at the podium after you get beat 50 or whatever it was and say, well, I got a team that will quit on you. You got no chance after that. And I think you saw that happen the rest of the way.
I was watching the ladies NCAA basketball championship where UCLA was, boy, you want to talk about what we were saying earlier about Michigan just hitting their stride at just the right time. UCLA women absolutely demolished South Carolina for the women's championship. And why I'm bringing this up is you just watch the joy that team had. Winning a national title will do that for you. I get it. But how they played for their coach. You know what I mean? It's like in this era that's very, very transactional. And UCLA, by the way, they brought in, they were talking about it. They have like 6 or 7 seniors and like 5 of them were transfers that they brought in over time from the portal, but they all bought in. And it just feels like what happened. We got the transactional part right with, paying good money for a lot of these players to come in, whether they were freshmen or transfers. But to me, it sure didn't feel like they were bought in on the system. It's probably why Kim changed her game plan a little bit mid-season. I mean, we've got all sorts of analysis we can offer. We don't really know what happened behind the scenes. But, man, I'll tell you one thing. What I saw today and what I saw in the Final Four in general with women's basketball, it feels like Lady Vols are so far from that right now. It's going to take a while to climb on that. And I do think that it'd be good if Kim Caldwell's staying. If Danny's made the decision she's staying, let's hear from her. That's another thing I think that's important at this point is just talk to the media, man. Let them, because all that happens, this, CeeLo, in the absence of any communication, people start creating their own narratives and it just becomes kind of a toxic fan base and everything. It's not healthy, man. We gotta get past that one way or another. If she's staying, that's fine. Then let's move on and talk about how that's going to happen. If she's not, then let's move on from that point too. But one way or another, they got to get some clear communication out there. That's my opinion.
Yeah, it's like a scab that won't heal. You keep picking at it, at it, it won't heal. And that's sort of what I see happening now with that program. You're right. I think it's time, for her to talk, for Danny to talk, to come out and say, hey, I know Danny, listen, I've had a ton of things in my life that I've said, things that I've written that I go back and say, man, I wish I wouldn't have written it that way. I wouldn't have said that.
Guilty.
We're all like that. I guarantee you Danny would love to have a mulligan on going on the radio and saying, she's doing a great job. And we never thought it was going to be a quick fix. And you go listen to his comments when they hired her. And he said basically the opposite of that. We expect to win big right away, which Tennessee should in women's basketball. My gosh, it's Pat Summitt's program. She built it, and they were the epitome of excellence the whole time she was there. But, I know he wished he didn't say that now, but I do think you could at least help rally the situation some. If she would come out, he would come out and talk about, hey, we're going to get this thing right. You don't have to lay out your complete blueprint, your game plan, where you go from here.
Sure.
But assure some people you have one, okay? You do have a blueprint. You do have a game plan. We're going to get this thing right. But I think the more everything just hangs out there, and if she is indeed his coach, and I have no reason to believe at this point she's not. I mean, trying to hire a head basketball coach right now with everything that's happening, yes, it's Tennessee, would be hard, but I think it still probably makes for a little bit less chaos surrounding the program if you come out and say, hey, she's my basketball coach, and we're going to get this fixed, and then have Kim talk about it. The thing they better be doing right now is pound the pavement trying to find some players.
No doubt. The women's portal opens on Monday. So, it'll be interesting to see there. And we'll be interested to see what happens with Jada Civil. She's a great player. She was a 5-star, I believe, coming in. So if she could at least keep her, that would you've got some sort of starting point, right? So time will tell. Time will tell. All right, let's talk for a moment about our sponsor. Talk about our friends from the Tate Insurance Group. Great people. They're your local insurance team. They're proud to call East Tennessee home. Just like our Vols, they know what it takes to overcome obstacles, to give their all, and show true volunteer spirit for our community. From home and auto to business coverage, they provide personal service that you can count on. And again, they care about what you care about, because this is where they live too. They can relate. Tate Insurance Group, local, trusted, always in your corner, and right here at home. If you want to learn more about their services and what they have to offer, you can certainly give them a call. Scott and the bunch over there, they do great work. Their phone number is area code 865-862-8233. Or you can go online, check out at their website, TateInsuranceGroup.com. TateInsuranceGroup.com, area code 865-862-8233. Let's, feels like with Lady Vols basketball, we kind of maybe brought the room down a little bit. So let's look at the bright side, Chris. There is less than 5 months till it's once again football time in Tennessee. Spring football, as it tends to do, moving along at warp speed. And if it's going to culminate, though, with the orange and white game next Saturday, April 11th, just kind of an update on what we hear. There was another scrimmage this week. We heard a little bit from Josh Heupel about the quarterback room. If there's a top line takeaway, and I think that's all we have right now is top line. There was some talk about George McIntyre being a little bit inconsistent. And then Faison Brandon, I should say, inconsistent as well, but has the underpinnings of a true playmaker, just given some of the plays he made. This is going to be interesting because I think there's that whole, I think we said this last week, Chris, I think there truly is going to be a quarterback competition, and it feels like kind of different styles. You've got the home run hitter, perhaps, in Faison Brandon, who, there's some risk there when it's a true freshman. You got GMAC, who is, got a little more time under his belt, but he might be more of a game manager. I don't know. That one's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to play its way all the way through the summer till late August.
I'll start here. I think there's a general feel around that program, and I think it goes right to the new strength coach, Derek Owings, that this is a team that's better conditioned, a team that's stronger across the board. They hope faster, but they feel like the tempo with which they're playing and practicing at right now and are able to practice that is better than it was this time a year ago. And that's the reason that Tennessee went and paid Derek Owings the kind of money they're paying him. He's the highest paid strength coach in college football. And that was is Josh Heupel looked at his program, self-scouted. That's the area he knew he needed to fix. So now we haven't started playing games yet.
Yeah.
But I know just in talking to people over there, the tempo and the pace, the way they're playing, some of the gains, the personal gains players have made, and some of their strength numbers and speed numbers, they're really happy with. I think the other thing is what you just hit on. I've got no doubt that this is a legit quarterback competition. Well, I sat with Josh for close to an hour before spring practice ever began. He was not going into this spring with any predetermined notion of who was going to be his quarterback. He was going to let that play out on the field. And he said there's no way we're going to find that out in the spring. So much of who your quarterback is goes through the summer. Who really sort of takes the lead, who's the guy that the other guys on offense sort of gravitate to, that start to believe in, the guy that gives people around him confidence. And we just haven't had enough time to really make that determination. And I do think that Faison is one of those guys that if you're going to play a true freshman quarterback, has the skill set to be that guy. Now, if you're going to do it, you just sort of got to learn to live with some of the mistakes. Sometimes they're really big mistakes, critical mistakes. They're going to be highs, they're going to be lows. But I don't think the stage is going to be too big for him. And I think that's the thing that they like most about that kid to this point, is it hasn't been too big. You got to be able to bounce back. When you're a quarterback, you make a bad play, you throw a ball you shouldn't have thrown, you hold it onto it and get sacked, those kind of things. You got to be able to bounce back.
Right.
Now, I think McIntyre, too, has got a big arm and a guy that when they got him, they felt like he would be someone down the road that could be their quarterback. And I don't think they've backed off that yet. but they aren't the same quarterback. And you're exactly right. They are a little bit different. And I think that's a good thing when you've got a quarterback battle. You're not looking at two guys who are exactly the same type of quarterback. They're a little bit different. And this thing is going to go into the fall. My sense is you probably see both those kids play this year in some way, shape, or form.
Well, I was going to ask you, do you think it could even be so much as I don't love this, but remember the Eric Ainge, Brent Schaefer?
No, I don't. I don't think Josh wants to do that. I mean, I think they want to pick the guy that's the best. And remember, you got to win the locker room to be the quarterback. And I always say you don't fool the players on the field. They know who the best guy is. And sometimes coaches have gotten themselves in trouble with going with a guy that's maybe a little – and I don't mean this with George because George doesn't have any experience either. See, he's been in the system longer, but he's not played. He's not played any meaningful snaps. So this is not directed toward him. But I've been around situations where a coach, Bob, has gone with a player who's maybe been in the system a little bit longer, has more experience, but he didn't necessarily win it on the field.
Yeah.
And that backfires. So I don't think Josh Heupel was going to make that mistake. He will play the guy who's most consistent, who's made the most plays, the guy he feels like the players around him have the most confidence in and gives them the best chance to win. I don't think you're going to see a two-quarterback system, but I do think they're going to have every intent to have both those kids ready to play. And if one doesn't get it done, remember, they go to Georgia Tech the second week of the season. That game's on campus at Georgia Tech. If one doesn't get it done, they'll have the other one ready to play, and that person or that QB will get his shot.
Let's jump over to the defensive side of the ball for a second, because I don't know what you're hearing, Chris, but I'm hearing good stuff. Quite a bit of positive chatter around the way the defense is picking up the Jim Knowles system and the installation of that system. And I think that's a testimony to, look, he brought some assistants with him from Penn State and brought some players too. The ones that are adapting super quickly, no surprise, Xavier Gilliam, Amari Campbell, DeJuan Lane. That said, the most anticipated Penn State transfer, which was Chaz Coleman, the reports I'm hearing is he's scuffling a little so far. Now, I don't want to turn that into, oh my God, what's happening with this guy? You know, but he was, I believe he was true freshman last year, and this guy's got so much upside. But by and large, the Coleman situation aside, it feels like the defense is progressing, at least in understanding of the system, maybe faster than we were all anticipating.
Well, I know that was the plan in talking to Jim before the start of spring, was that very much the reason he brought in so many of his assistants and brought in some of his players for Penn State is he wanted to expedite that whole process and not have to wait halfway through the year or sometimes even the whole year.
Yeah.
For his kids to play as instinctively as he wants them to, as fast as you need to play in this league. You know, you get caught thinking on defense against some of the teams you're going to play in this league, you're in trouble. And I think they do feel like they have been able to be a little bit ahead of schedule. I do think they're going to have more guys that can make plays in the open field. You look who they brought in the secondary, some of those guys, the edge rushers. I still, if you ask me what part of the defense is the biggest unknown, it's right there in the middle defensively. You know, how much are they going to be able to push that pocket? How much are they going to be able to stop the run? How deep are they? If someone, we've already seen, you know, he's not out for, I don't think, any extended period of time in the fall, but we've already seen Hobbs go down. He was probably the guy with the most experience in there at the defensive interior tackle position. But that's where I look at and say, well, they're going to have some guys that didn't play as much last year really step up and play beyond their years. And they're going to have more of them, because rarely do you get through a season with only 2 or 3 guys on the interior ready to play. You got to have 4 or 5 of them. And so if you ask me what's your biggest concern, or maybe not concern, but the biggest unknown that we're probably not going to know about until we get 2, 3, 4 weeks into the season is where Tennessee is in the middle of that defense.
Yeah. Well, we'll be watching closely. Orange and white game, like we said, about a week away. It will not be televised, but we'll have people in there covering it, and we'll get some feedback. Certainly, I'm going to be out of town on that Saturday, so I won't be able to go attend. I'd love to, But we'll be able to give you as much intel as we can on what's going on there. But all things told, I think things are progressing nicely. We got a quarterback battle, and that's always fun to watch too. Everybody's got an opinion on it, right?
Has anybody ever had a bad spring practice, Bob?
Has
any team in the history of college football?
Yeah.
Did you ever see the spoof? Did you ever see Spurrier? It was in the spring, and they came up to him late in the spring and said, "Coach, what do you think?" We can't stop anybody on defense. Can't make a field goal. Every pass we throw is incomplete. Not a very tough football team. And everybody's sort of like, look at him. He just starts laughing. He said, Have you ever heard a coach say that? Have you ever heard a coach come out and say, well, we're just not very good? So I love in spring ball, and I've already been making the rounds, and you hear a lot of the same things. We're a deeper football team. We're a stronger football team. We feel like our culture is better. And that's why spring ball to me is always about one thing, and that's development of especially your younger players or inexperienced players, to get those guys to a level where you can count on them the next year. And I don't know if there's any tried and true way to know that, but the teams typically that come out of spring feeling the best are the ones that feel like they've had guys develop individually that they know they're going to have to count on that next season.
Well, I know it's not spring football, but I would say that Jermod McCoy and Colton Hood had some nice spring workouts. Their pro days were highly regarded. All of a sudden, Jermod McCoy, all's forgiven about missing the season with the ACL injury, etc. There's some mocks that are pushing him into the top 10 now. I mean, so I guess they feel like he is fully recovered.
Yeah, it stinks for Tennessee that he was out all year. I mean, He could have certainly helped them back there when you look at some of their struggles on the back end. And Colton Hood was, once again, much like McCoy the year before, what a great find in the portal.
Absolutely.
To come in and play the way he did. And whether it's Metcalf this year, the kid from Michigan, Tennessee's going to have that same type of play from guys they got in the portal. But no, Hood was really good, and of course they lost Gibson to Texas A&M in the portal. So you can't go back and redo things, but it would have been interesting to see if Tennessee could have played this whole year with Colton Hood on one side and Jermod McCoy on the other. Would Tennessee have won the SEC title? No, but I bet it would have been the difference in another win or two at least.
I think you're right. Well, certainly more to come. We're just starting to pop the top on football. It's going to rule the roost here pretty soon in a matter of weeks. So we'll keep you posted on that. Vol baseball is how we'll wrap up the show today. And it's been kind of a roller coaster, this show, right? We've had some good news. Then we talk about women's basketball, which is not so good. Football, there's some optimism. Baseball was feeling good for a minute this week. The midweek they had it was expected, but the bats got healthy. 13-4 win over Austin Peay in their midweek matchup. But the big matchup was a weekend series against the defending national champions from LSU. We said it last week. It was a critical series. That's a massive understatement because the Vols at that time were 3-6 in conference play. So the series starts on Friday evening. Vols lose 7-5, blowing a 4-1 lead in the 8th inning. Saturday, the Vols win 4-1. Pretty efficient win for the Vols, considering they could only muster 3 hits, but 2 of them were big hits: a Blake Grimmer home run, a Jay Abernathy double that kind of created the distance in that game. But most notably in that Saturday game, breakout performance, another one, frankly, from Cam Appenzeller. That freshman, 5 innings pitched in relief, 1 hit allowed, 6 strikeouts. Before we get to the Sunday game, Chris, this Appenzeller kid, everybody forgets, I did at least, that he was a first-round pick in the draft. And the fact that he didn't go to the pros and is going to be here now for, well, hopefully a couple of years, this guy is absolutely electric.
Yeah, their arms, Tennessee's arms, they're starting rotation guys. They've got 2-3 of them, maybe even 4 that could pitch anywhere and really deserve a lot better than they've gotten at this point. And he's certainly one of them. He came in, and that's the game that Tennessee won against LSU was dynamite. I think that he's one that you can use, and we've seen this. You can use him as a starter. You can use him in relief, and I think that's what Josh Elander is trying to figure out now what is the right mix for them, because Sunday clearly has been a disaster for Tennessee in the SEC part of their schedule. They just have not been able to get it right. Pitching, it's almost always out of the pen. I mean, you look at today, Blanco was really pretty darn good. He gave them every chance to win that baseball game. But when they've gone to the pen, on Sundays in particular, it's been a disaster. And I know it's easy to always point to guys who come up and give up home runs. LSU looked like they were taking bad practice, from, I don't know, the 6th, 7th inning on.
Yep.
But let's not forget, in a lot of these games, Tennessee's blown, and they have blown now a lot of leads in all 4 of their SEC series. They've had chances in all those games with guys on base, and they haven't hit to blow those games open, to really give them some better breathing room. So it's easy to point the finger just at some of the bullpen issues on Sunday, and clearly they are issues. But even in today's game, Tennessee had a chance to score more runs, and at one point let the LSU pitcher retire, 12, 13, 14 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in the realm of SEC series and you're trying to win a series, it's 1-1 like it was today. You've got to be able to deliver when there are guys out there on base. You've got to be able to come with clutch hits. And that was the hallmark of this program. It has been the hallmark of this program, since Tony Vitello got it started. And the guy who was in the middle of that, certainly from a hitting standpoint, was Josh Elander. You talk to Christian Moore, you talk to Drew Gilbert, all those guys, and they swear by him. So for whatever reason, the mojo it hasn't been what it needs to be, and they got to get it turned around. I thought today as I was watching that game that they might, but it's such a mental game, baseball is. And as soon as LSU scores 1 run and they get the other home run, then all of a sudden it's a 5-3 game. What's in the back of everybody's mind standing in that Tennessee dugout. It's like, okay, here we go again.
Yeah.
You got to find a way to get past that, because I still think this team has what it takes to be an NCAA tournament team. They're not getting, not today, but they're 1 strike away from winning. I know it sounds crazy. They're 1 strike away from winning that game.
Yeah.
And the guy hits the slow roller that Tennessee can't get the third out on. Then they end up getting blown out extra innings by 10. But this is a team that's been right there. Tons and tons of walk-off losses. You go back to the Georgia game, the first series, they're right there towards winning that series. I still think they got what it's capable, but man, they got to get some things happening positive in a hurry, or I think then, Bob, this snowball gets too big and too icy, and it's rolling downhill. I don't know if they can stop it.
Yeah, I'm with you. This was the game on Sunday. Like you said, they were up 5-1 going into the 7th. It's the 3rd time in the last 4 games where Tennessee has blown late inning leads, and it's no surprise they've lost all those games. This one took a little longer. It went to extra innings. But my gosh, then the dam broke in the 12th. Like you said, LSU scored 10 runs. I don't recall a team ever getting, in the recent era at least, getting 10 runs on Tennessee in 1 inning. This Cade Arambide kid from LSU, he had 4 home runs in this game himself. 4 home runs and 7 RBIs. Had a grand slam in the 12th, and that you could just tell our guy Reese Chapman, who's been on the show before, he hit it to dead right, and Reese didn't even move. He just stood there because it was such a towering shot. You knew there was no play to be made on it. So there's that. And then also, you touched on it, man, 17 hits total in a 3-game series against SEC offenses like LSU's, which is coming around. That's not going to cut it, man. It's just not. I agree with you. I think starting pitching, we've got some good arms. It's just so, shoring up the bullpen and then getting some offense going. I don't know what it's going to take. And like you said, that's the great irony. The guy who's architected this offensive attack over the years has been Josh Elander. So I don't know, man. There's something missing right now. There's no doubt about it. And I agree with you. They go to Mississippi State this next weekend, the number 4 team in the country. So,
who I think had a bad weekend this weekend. Did Mississippi State? Did they have a bad weekend?
Yeah, I think they at least lost 1 game to Georgia. I don't know if they lost the whole series.
Well, it's not going to be easy. It doesn't matter who Tennessee plays the rest of the way. Everybody in this league is certainly capable. And even LSU doesn't have what's their record now? Either 500 or just one game under 500 in the SEC.
Correct.
That team is loaded with talent. I mean, they've got unbelievable offensive talent and firepower.
Yeah.
It just takes them, and maybe for them at Tennessee's expense, maybe this weekend is what gets them going, and hitting and taking off. But no, Tennessee's got to get something good to happen. They've got to string together some wins. They've got to get into some late inning situations and deliver where they just haven't delivered. I think if you want to take any good out of what's happened, is they've been right there. They're not just getting outclassed and beaten badly. They're losing in the last inning. They're losing when they've got a chance. Again, people look at it. If you didn't watch today's game, if someone didn't watch today's game, and you see that score 16-6 in 12 innings,
yeah,
never do you realize. There's no way to realize that Tennessee was one strike in the 10th inning away from winning that, or 9th or 10th winning that game. And they get an infield hit, a slow roller that Tennessee just doesn't feel. Maybe they should have, doesn't do it in time, and they can't recover once LSU takes the lead. And those are the kind of things that they got to figure out a way to get past. I'll say this, if Tennessee does get it going, all the people that are saying things that are personal, because, hey, criticism is part of it, man. You don't coach in the SEC without having thin skin, but you also – fan bases and people on message boards and on shows like this, on talk shows, don't come back around. Okay, if Tennessee gets this thing going again this year, you're not allowed. Okay, right now I'm serving notice, Bob. You are not allowed to jump back on. Okay, if you jumped off, no jumping back on.
Yeah,
and I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be hard for Tennessee to crawl out of this, but I don't think it's impossible. And I do think they've still got the roster and the team to do it. They've got to have some games that they're able to close out here to get some momentum back.
No doubt. One last thing to mention was in the 11th inning, Levi Clark came about, 1.5 2 feet away from a walk-off 2-run homer too. Right. Just to your point, that close on a lot of things with this team. It's just got to get over the hump right now. And, I think Braden Krenzel's situation kind of sums it all up. It feels like he's kind of got the yips on the mound. I feel like this team is starting to get that in total when it gets to the late innings. We got to get past that, man. So we shall see.
Teams give you an opening. I think LSU had 2 really horrible errors today.
Oh, yeah. They had 4 errors in the game. 4
that led to the grand slam to put Tennessee ahead. So, again, when you're playing such elite competition in a league that's as good as the SEC is in baseball, and people give you free bases or give you 5 outs in an inning, man, you got to take advantage of it, and you've got to close the door. And Tennessee just at times hasn't been able to do that this year. I go back to the very first series against Georgia.
Yeah,
they're up 5 runs in that game with a chance to win their very first series of the season and just can't get it done. And it almost seems like ever since then, whether it's bad mojo, whether it's not hitting in clutch situations, whether it's your bullpen, just sort of falling apart in key situations on Sundays, it's just sort of all blended together right now. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie. Remember the movie The Natural with Robert Redford when they were on that horrible slump, and they're having to go through these sessions with the guys and all sitting in there asleep, and he's repeating these phrases over and over again. It's almost like that's the case with this Tennessee baseball team right now. They just need something to snap them out of it, to win a couple games in a row, to win a series, and then let's see what they do with it. Because right now, it's just not happening for them.
Yeah. We'll be watching for sure. All right, that does it for this week. As always, we appreciate all of you out there giving us a watch or listen. And as always, many thanks to our fantastic sponsor, the Tate Insurance Group. A reminder, too, to hit that like and subscribe button for the show on the Rocky Top Insider YouTube channel, or download our podcast wherever you listen to your pods. We're available wherever you go in that regard. Make us part of your rotation, whether you're watching us or listening to us, and we always appreciate that support. We'll be back next week with Vol football talk. We'll report what we saw or heard from the orange and white game. We'll talk about the latest with Vol men's basketball as a new episode of As the Portal Turns will be complete, hopefully. And could it possibly be, is there a possibility we could have a drama-free week for Lady Vols basketball? I'm not sure about that, but we'll report on that as well. As always, we'll cover it all for you during the week right here. Keep it locked in on Rocky Top Insider at RockyTopInsider.com and all of the socials. We're a little biased, but we feel we have the best Tennessee Vol coverage anywhere, and it doesn't cost you a thing. A reminder to hit that like and subscribe button. Like I said, CeeLo, always appreciate the chance to chop it up with you, my friend. Hope you have a great week. And again, it's almost over, but happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you, Bob, and everybody out there. Look forward to doing it again next Sunday.
Definitely so. And again, thanks to all of you for making us a part of your Sunday routine. We'll look forward to you joining us right here next time on the RTI Lowdown.